All right, welcome, hero of the month. I've got Richard Dudzicki. Is that how you say it?
That's how you say it. It's fine.
Yep. He's well. I mean, I love Richard. He's on our weekly Q&A calls every month. He's a huge contributor. He's done some great stuff. He's had some trials and tribulations. He sticks at it, but he's one of the people who's there every single week. And I think the reason he's hero of the month is because there's a lot we can learn from Richard. He's a very good London-based architect. He's going to tell us about what he is and who he does it for. I know he's got some secret clients which he doesn't talk about, which I won't bring up unless you want to bring them up. But I know so he's very well connected. But anyway, let's get into it without further ado. So Richard, give us an overview. Who are you? What do you do? And who do you do it for?
I'm an architect in London and also an interior designer. I consider myself an interior designer because I used to teach it for a long time. I taught it at Chelsea College of Art for about 12 years. But we have a real specialist niche, and I've been doing ecologically sound buildings on difficult sites for the last 20 odd years. And ecologically sound buildings effectively are passive houses. So the last 10 years, it's Passivhaus. And Passivhaus has really grown, and especially now with net zero, that's really what we're doing. It's the net zero aspect and us working with lovely sustainable homes and making sure that they don't end up. One of the things our clients say is a lot of ecological buildings end up looking like sticks and straw and hay bales. Right. What we do is we don't do that. We do absolutely ecological buildings, which are beautiful. And they like that, and they tend to get published, and it tends to work really well.
All right, cool. You better give us your website so people can have a check you out.
Yeah, the website's www.rdauk.com.
Okay, RDA. Okay, right. So we can learn a lot from Richard because he has learned a lot himself. I think you're already running a pretty successful practice. How many people have you got in your practice?
We've got 11 on the books as such. Out of those, 2 of those are freelance, and then I have about another 3 people who work with me on a regular basis, like a planning consultant who comes in 2 days a week, and other people. A lot of them are quite young. We have more women than men. Yep. So it's quite unusual in architecture, but for some reason we seem to attract women into the practice, and they seem to stay as well, which is nice. So there's a really good environment, and people have been with me for 10 years, 12 years. So people who do come into the practice seem to stay there, which is always a good sign.
Cool. So what I want to talk to Richard today about is LCCs, or getting paid for pre-design work, referrals, and niching, right? So you've been on a bit of a journey since about April. Tell us about maybe where you were before. You joined the 6 program, obviously, where you were, why you decided to join, and then what challenges you had, and then, what you've done. So let's start from the beginning, because you're running a reasonably successful practice anyway, I'm sure.
It's a reasonably successful practice, but the issue for me was how to grow it. Right. We have a reasonable turnover, and how to grow it and how to specialize. I don't want to be a run-of-the-mill general practitioner architect. That's not what we're about. We are very specialized. One of the things that I've been doing is I've been doing a lot of work with the Royal Institute of British Architects and so forth, and I've sort of tried to get to know people there. And this year we were supposed to be going to, in 2020, to MIPIN, which is a big trade show down in Cannes. And we were supposed to be going there with the RIBA. That didn't happen, and I had a bit of money left over from that. And that's when I thought, okay, I'll join VAMI, because I saw some stuff and I thought, okay, I'll blow my marketing budget on this, give it a go. Sounds good. What was really unusual, when I did join and I started going through the course, I didn't know that half the architects I knew had already done it, and the successful ones had done it, which was quite interesting. But that's a secret, I'm telling you now, but that was quite, so there's a lot of names and people that suddenly have appeared out of the woodwork that I suddenly thought, oh, they've done that, which is interesting. They kept it quiet as well.
Yeah, a lot of them do, actually. I've got a couple of ladies up in Auckland, and one of them joined, and she spoke to Kate and said, "Oh, Kate, I see you're in the program." She said, oh, yeah, you joined. She said, why didn't you tell me? And she said, I don't tell anyone.
That's what most of them do.
Thanks
That's
very much. Yeah. That's the
yeah,
problem we have. We'd like more referrals, but no one wants to say it. It's because it works quite nicely. No one wants to tell anyone.
I know that's a problem.
Yeah.
You've got to get around it. That's how you've got to get around that, Richard. I don't know how you're going to do it. Yeah. No, but yeah, that is a difficult one to figure out. Yeah, so I basically started a program because I wanted more interesting work as well, and slightly more specialist work. And we had sort of two niches. So when I started the program, I started off thinking, okay, we've got COVID times. It's all there's a lot of NHS work, and we were doing lots of doctor's surgeries and NHS work. And by looking at the program and understanding what the program was, I actually suddenly realised, well, actually, our big tick box with all our successes and our major successes hasn't been the surgery work we've been doing, but it's been all the ecological work we've done. And we're probably leaps and bounds ahead of other people in that field, which is a sort of another field. And that's also actually one of the reasons we did get the doctor's surgeries, because a lot of doctors want to be very green, and hence we do sort of fairly green surgeries. But that's too specialist. There's, you know, to do green surgeries is you probably get one or two a year. So once I did the chart, which you go through with, you go through at the beginning of the program. So I put the different niches that we had on the chart. I suddenly realised doctor's surgeries, I only got 6.5. Beautifully interior designed passive houses, it came out about 9 on the slider scale. And I thought, hang on a minute, we're doing something wrong here. And I re-energized the practice, re-energized the website, re-energized everything to focus on this particular niche. And that's helped me hugely, because that's now kicking into gear. We're getting further referrals. We're getting more of the work we want to get. So since I started the program, we've probably got about 5 or 6 new build houses now since I started the program. So it's quite good. That's probably, it's a few million quid's worth of work. Yeah. So, you know, I can't knock it on that basis. We probably would have got 1 or 2 without, you know, necessarily doing the program, but it's helped. It's definitely helped. So I think it's brilliant. So absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So tell us about some of the key tools you've used, and I know you've had some success with the LCC. So give us your take on the LCC, what it is for you, where you started, you know, how. I'll tell you the other thing that's interesting, because I remember you saying the other week about getting appointments as well, that you were struggling with that too. So maybe you can talk about that as well. But let's start with getting appointments, because that kind of then leads into the LCC.
Okay, one of the problems that I had before I did the program was that I would use the RIBA domestic or the RIBA commercial contract as an appointment. So I'd go out, see a client. The client would usually pay me, and I would get paid £100 for a site visit. I used to do that just to filter the people who wouldn't pay a penny, because I knew if they wouldn't pay a penny, then they were just angling for something. But I've had a standard fixed fee, which was 100 quid, that I'll go out to your site and, you know, I'll give you some verbal advice. And that sort of, that separated some of the people. That's how I've worked it for quite some time. The problem is, I'd go and see a client, they'd give me 100 quid. I'd spend an hour, maybe an hour and a half, take the time out to go there, come back to the office, write the appointment, and an architect's appointment, a full appointment, is a booklet about this thick. Yeah, so it's about 1 inch thick, or 2.5 centimeters, of all the bits and pieces. That would take me a day. That's a day's worth of work to sit down and do that. And then, would I get the job? 50-50. Yeah, maybe I get it, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe they'll come back and say, oh, you're too expensive. Maybe you're not. What I love about the program is the small steps, and the steps to take before you get the contract. We've done about 20 LCCs now, maybe more. I need to have a quick look, but we've done quite a few. And they're both commercial, domestic, and they're slightly different, each one. But we structured a program of how we were going to do this. And so just by going through the program, we then made a template, which I posted up on Slack. So if anyone does see it, they might want to see, you know, have a look. And we started off with a flat fee for the very first one of £795. And I thought, oh my God, that's too much. Oh, no way, no way. Clients are going to run away from me. They didn't. And I've done the videos for the LCC, the pre-planning pack and everything. And everyone who's actually gone on our website and looked at it loves it. And they go, you're the only architect who's actually doing that for us. Yeah, we're happy to pay you. And what's happened since then, that was early on, that's probably around September, August, September this year. What I'm doing now is I'm actually charging £12.95 for what I was charging £7.95, and that's only in the last week and a half. I've upped it, and people are still buying it because I realised it was too cheap. And it's actually a good product. It is a good product. It is a good product. And then the next step is £2,000 or £3,000. That's still part of the LCC. So we've got one which is £12.95. The next one, depending whether it's a domestic contract or a commercial contract, is either £2,000 or £3,000, which is where they do get some sketches. But it's working, and then they sign up to the full contract, and the full contract doesn't go out to them until they've spent at least £3,000 with us. And at that stage, they are already in because they want to work with us.
Right.
So at that point, they're hooked. And whether you're charging them more than the architect, they're not worried about that. You know, they're not worried that you're charging them. So our rates go from £85 an hour for some of the junior people up to, say, 250. But I'm already thinking about putting my rates up. So, and even at this time where a lot of architects have been laid off. Now, the other thing that we do is we do a lot of work for other architects. When I say other architects, they're directors in big firms. So if you're UK based, well, it's big firms and American firms as well. So I know a lot of directors in these who want their houses done. And I'm doing a house for a director who's been a director with a very big firm of architects. I'm not going to mention a name, but you know, everyone in the UK will know about these firms. This firm. I'm doing his house. He was made redundant last week because there's no commercial work of the scale that he's doing left. But we're picking up jobs. So, you know, these guys are happy to work with us because we know the skills and we know how to do it. And it's actually working really well, the LCC methodology, because it's actually winning us that work.
And it's great. And do you find, because the LCC is a small step, it's reasonably easy to sell as long as you can justify what you're going to do and why it's a value to them. But once they're in, they're kind of in for everything. So you get them in on the easy thing, and then that's it. They're in for the lot.
They are, but I think one of the things you've got to be really careful with at the LCC is making sure that the client knows what they're expecting.
Right.
Yeah. So at that initial step, not necessarily to show them a completed LCC. I never do that. No. But to say this is what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're going to get. You're not going to get sketches in the first stage. That's a diagnosis. I love Richard's analogy with medicine. And I think it's exactly that. You're analysing. So we won one last week, which is in Suffolk. It's on the coast, up on the Suffolk coast, and it's a new build house. And he was an RAF-based commander, the chap who got in touch with us, and he said, "The reason I really like you is because you analyse the problem like a general would." Right. And I thought, hey. I thought, bloody hell, something's working here. Yeah. You know, and he was really, you know, it was really complimentary. And my number two, the guy who works with me, James, my number two, he's grown up on RAF bases, so I thought, brilliant. You know,
General Dudzicki.
Yeah.
At ease, Klein.
No, so, you know, I thought to myself, that was, you know, it's a really nice compliment, because it just showed that we, well, not we, the program is structured in such a way that it is like a military campaign. Yeah. And if you follow these little steps, you will get a success.
Yeah.
And that's what it.
Well, it's how it has to be, I think, too, to do a professional job. Is you can't do a professional job unless you've done a proper diagnosis first, or a proper review of the battlefield. You know, you don't just say, right, well, let's send 3,000 men off in that direction. You know, you got to, and you've got to have time to do it properly. You've got to get paid to do it properly, you know.
Exactly.
And if they don't want to pay you to do it properly, then go, hey, you know, I don't like doing projects which aren't done properly, because I like happy clients. So, you know.
Well, I learned that today, because the first LCC today, I turned down, Richard. That was a huge learning factor. I mentioned it to Eric earlier on. And for me, it was not an LCC, it was an Ask the Expert call I had today. Again, you know, so I set up the Ask the Expert call. This lady called me up. It was an interesting project, but she wanted it done in 3 phases. And she said she had 40 grand for the first phase. And I said, look, as much as I would love to help you, that first phase is not going to cost you 40 grand. It's going to cost you 80 grand at the minimum. And I said, that's even me doing it with mates rates. I said, there's no way it's going to cost you. Oh no, but I've got a plumber and an electrician who. I said, it's not going to cost, you know, how much is the plumber? Yeah, they're going to redo the whole house with a new boiler, new tank, and all new pipe work for free, between £3,000 and £5,000. So I said, well, the boiler's going to cost you 1,500 quid, and the tank's going to cost you 1,500 quid. Where's their labour and their parts? I said, it doesn't work. And I said, I'm really sorry, you know, but I didn't say at the Ask the Expert. I gave her professional advice for my half hour, but at the end of that, I wrote to her with an email saying, this job doesn't really fit with us, and I do think that you really need to evaluate your budget. And yeah, but that for me, that's a success.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think no is one of the big steps to success. I mean, you need to learn to say no to projects, but you're right, you need to say no to LCCs. I think that's if you're not saying no to a certain percentage of clients, then you're never going to have a successful business. Because you define yourself by what you say no to. And if you just accept everything, then you become everything. And if you're everything, then you're not something special. You can never be something special if you're everything.
That's so true. It's about finding that niche. And the niche aspect is the most important, of $1 million message. It's really, really important. You know, so I think that is important. It is, definitely.
Right. So the other thing that I know you've worked well on and diligently is referrals. So tell us about, you know, what impact referrals have for you and what you do and what you weren't doing.
The referral network I think it's fantastic. It's one of the later stages in the program. And that's worked fantastically for me. So we've done postcards. Postcards of Directory of Experts. And what we do is we publish our project. We have our 10 experts on the back, or 11 experts on the back, and we give them out to clients. We've got a chart, which is, again, part of the program, and we tick off what we do. Like last week, a week and a half ago, I went out with one of the landscape designers. I handed her a pack of postcards, 12 of them. She's number 2 on the list on a particular job. She was really overwhelmed. She was going, these are lovely. Now, they probably cost me 15 quid. You know, to get printed up. It wasn't a lot. Now with digital printing, it's cheap. It's not expensive. But I've not done one. I've done different sets for different people. And what that's done, it means that people who finish jobs with you, and whether they're builders, they feel proud and they feel happy because it's a beautiful image. I've paid for photography. We've got one beautiful image on the front, and they're listed on the back with their numbers with other people. But we're on top. It works brilliantly because suddenly we're getting more work. More people are talking about us. We're getting phone calls. Oh, this builder's recommended you to so-and-so. The other thing is the newsletters. We sent our first newsletter out in October. We sent our second one out now in December. And end of October, beginning of November. So we've now done 2 sets of newsletters. They've gone out to around 4750 people. The newsletters have, and they're quite nice. So it's sort of an A3, which is folded in half. But we're also including sort of client testimonials in there, which is one of the things which is really useful. And we've now got a program of the newsletters. I've just briefed one of my assistants with me on what we're going to do for the next year, because again, rightly, it's about targeting the work you need. And what's happened with the newsletters, all of a sudden, the newsletters always have a gift. I get a phone call from a client who I haven't spoken to for 2 years. And he's phoned me up, oh, Richard, fantastic, lovely to hear from you. And you sort of forget, you forget you've done this work for this person, and they forget you, and then suddenly you're in their circle and you're getting referrals for other work from them. And so I had a referral this week from our newsletter that went out, and it's the first LCC that I've had to give the client a 10% discount on the LCC. That's why I jacked the prices up. Because it was a referral. Right. And, but I thought, fantastic. This is it's a brilliant solution. And the network's gradually getting bigger, right. And more people are calling us, and they say, oh, so-and-so, Michael's called me up and referred me to use you. And so forth, and it's working. What's also interesting is looking at ArcReach and seeing how many people have clicked and ticked to become subscribers to our newsletter. So we print 50, but we have them electronically as well, so we can send them out and people can subscribe on our subscription list. And that's probably up to about 80 or so, maybe 100 now. So it's interesting, that's something that I'm looking at sort of moving forward with.
Yeah, it's good leverage, isn't it? Because
it's fantastic leverage.
Use the message once, it goes out 80 times, and who knows, who it's going to be passed to or sent to, or what people are going to read. But at the press of a button, you can communicate to 80 people. And I tell you what, so a lot of the stuff you're doing, as well as focusing on wanting referrals, you're making yourself more referable, right? So by having that, by being in touch, it allows you to stay top of mind. But also by having those offers, you've got your Ask the Expert, you've got your Monkey's Fist, you've got your LCCs. There's things for your referral network. There's things for them to refer them to. They can refer them directly to you, but sometimes if I refer someone to you, it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to refer someone because of it. If something happens, it's back on me. But if I refer them to one of your tools or one of your resources, that's a little bit different. So, more people, it's easier to refer people to resources sometimes than it is to a person.
I think that's very true, and it's for resources, because one of the things is the needs and options being the best thing, because the needs and options, that little step, which is one of the first things you teach in your videos, which is that little step to take you up to that monkey's fist. That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And if I'd known about this 25 years ago, when I started my practice, I'd be, even though I've sort of got to a certain aspect of it, but I was charging 100 quid. Why didn't I actually think of doing something a bit different? Why? It's just, it's obvious when you look at it.
Well, when you look at it, but I tell you what, the problem with industries, and it's the same with any other industry. I've worked in a few different industries doing marketing, but pretty much everybody looks at what everyone else is doing and they end up copying it. And they end up being plus or minus 10% the same as everyone else. And they copy, of course, when it comes to marketing, you never taught marketing at design school. Well, you might have a week on marketing or something. There you go. We're going to teach you 8 years of design and 1 week of marketing. Now go get a job, because you won't be able to get any projects with the marketing we've taught you. So where does everybody learn their marketing from? They learn their marketing by looking around everyone else and just copying everyone else, thinking that everyone else is doing. If everyone's doing it, it must be right. Well, we know for a fact that if everyone else is doing it, it must be wrong, because you end up just people end up following people who are following people who are following people who are lost.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
So, it's funny. But all right. So that's great. So we've talked about referrals, LCC. I don't know, what are some of the big takeaways that for people listening to this? What are the big lessons you've learned? What are the mistakes you've made? Or, often you learn more from mistakes than you do from
Right. Mistakes. Make sure, don't try and be a general, find your niche really early on. I spent a bit too much time early on in the program, perhaps trying to do two things rather than focusing on one. And it was only later in the program that I realized that focusing on one, I think I'll stick with the one that I'm actually developing for a year or so. But I started off with the first 3 or 4 months working out too many niches, trying to do too many things. And that's definitely something that was a mistake. The other mistake that I made early on was not to charge enough for my LCC. And realistically, I think structure what you're going to give somebody, structure it, just have a series of points of what you're going to do. But don't give them drawings, just give them what just give them either the brief, the analysis, the geological data. As I mention this lots of London bomb damage maps, I always go to that. But these are all resources that you as an architect can find and pick up quite easily, but the client probably has difficulty in doing. Structure your LCC, structure it. Just have a template. Once you've got that template, once you've done 5 or 6 of those, that template will vary and change depending on your client need, because you will change it gradually from each one that you've done. You'll think, oh, I could have done that a little bit better, or I could have done that a bit better. But what you'll notice is as you change it and you develop it, you think, okay, well, that took me 4 hours, or that took me 8 hours, or that took... And then you start thinking, well, that really, I should be charging £1,500 for this, or I should be charging £1,200. So definitely don't underprice it. That's one thing. Don't be scared of charging more. That's another thing, because I was scared. Oh, well, they're just going to go to the people down the door, down. Because I've got another firm of architects that have opened up about 5 doors away from me. But they're the cheap architects that Richard always goes on about. They charge £295 for a crappy design. It is absolutely awful. But they've got a nice glossy brochure that they give to clients when they do this, but it's not good. But by us differentiating and actually charging not a little bit more, but a hell of a lot more, 5 times as much or 6 times as much as that, it puts us in a totally different league. And so clients, if they don't want to use us, they can go down the road. But, that's something I would say to you, really think about what you're going to charge and charge the most that you can. And that's not such a bad thing, as long as you attract people. The other thing that I would say also from this is think about how you're going to get people attracted to your website. I think that's quite important. If you haven't got people going to your website, how are you going to refer people to your website? How are people going to come in and actually acknowledge what you've got there? I think that's important. And we've done it by our specialist niche, by me speaking at conferences, by me getting involved more with the Passivhaus Trust, by me being involved more and talking more, in particular with the network that I decided to start off with, that niche, which is Passivhaus. So I've been involved in more stuff there recently, teaching kids. So I've had students from the University of Westminster come to have a look at some of our sites. I've been using the mentoring program. And all of a sudden, you come up onto the radar. People look at your website, and then you see the hits go right up. They sort of peak up. So that's just something just to be aware of.
Awesome. All right. So I think that's been very useful. I don't want to cover too much, and there's probably a million other things we could talk to you about, but particularly, what was interesting was your comments around the LCC, stuff around the referrals, and stuff around niching, which scares people sometimes. But I think what I'm taking from you is it just makes life easier particularly if your marketing is niched. It means you can focus, and there's power. And we're talking about focus early before we started recording, but both of us are saying, we're jumping all around the place and getting distracted and not focusing as well as we want to. Same with your marketing, I suppose. If you're going to have marketing which is all over the place, it's like a light being deflected everywhere. What you want is you need that laser focus in your marketing and in your mind.
I think you do a lovely talk about what you did with Mona and how you actually gave her a niche when you started working with her, and she didn't like it. It's like it's quite interesting sitting on some of the calls, and I think I was listening to one of the participants yesterday saying, oh, they weren't sure about naming themselves as the top expert in this field. They're scared. A lot of architects are quite restrained in saying items of that nature, and I think I am as well. And I sort of, I don't want to say, oh, we're the best at this or whatever. But you have to. You have to. And listen, I would say listen to you, Richard. I think you're an expert in this field, because if you don't, you never will. And I think having that expert niche, whatever it is, you're the best person to design houses with kids in it. Whatever it is, you've got to specialize. Oh, one of the things that I've noticed as well is through my ages, I've got 2 kids. And as my 2 kids have grown up, I've got a natural rapport with people of the same ages at schools and colleges and unis. Right. And you find that's a great tool as well, to meet people and talk to people, charitable events, all of that sort of stuff. The cricket match, the rugby field, all of this sort of stuff. It's really, it's a good place. But having niches which are really specialist, it's a key, total key, I think, Richard, total.
Right. Well, you can't be an expert in something unless you are, involved in a niche. So you can't be special. You'll never be special unless you say, here's what I do and here's what I don't do. Doesn't mean you can't have multiple niches if you need to, but certainly with your marketing, when they're getting your marketing material, it needs to look like you are, you're the number one person in their area. If you want to attract the high end, if you want to attract, if you can make money by, getting the cheapest clients and turning them over like a conveyor belt, if that's your game, then that's a different strategy. But it's not really I think the easiest one for us to work with from a marketing point of view is let's be the number one option to the very best clients in a particular area that you want to work in, and be the number one option. And in that, you have to charge the highest fees, because if you don't charge the highest fees in that particular area, then they're going to think they're not going to think you're the best. They expect the number one person in a niche to be the most expensive. And one of the cues they look for as to who's the best is what do they charge. And if Richard charges, £1,500 for some house visit and the guys down the road charge $295, I can only assume Richard's a lot better.
But it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing as Apple and Microsoft.
Yeah.
Why do you the same damn things really? They've got, well, until recently, they've both got Intel chips inside them. They do, you can get the same graphics, but you pay a lot more for Apple. Yeah, there's a certain reliability, whatever, but yeah, you've got a lovely aluminium case and all of this. But it's not worth the extra money that you pay for it. It really isn't. But it's nice, and it's your perception of it. It's it's the perception. They've marketed it in such a clever way that they can charge top dollar. They charge $2,500 for an Apple MacBook, whilst a PC one, which does exactly the same, is $1,000. But people buy it.
That's it. So on that note, Richard, you're the marketing hero of the month. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing all those insights with everybody. I'm sure everybody's, it's a real mind-opening thing, I think, listening to someone like you and some of the other stars that we have in the program. And I learn every time I talk to you guys, and it's just a great sharing. The sharing that happens just raises all boats on the water. So thank you.
I think that's what's so lovely. It's so lovely. The group is a really great group. And there's so many people who actually share, and you don't feel like you're in competition. The problem is when you're in a slightly more local group, you feel you're all competitive. And here, my nearest competitor, well, I've got a few people on the group who are quite close, but you feel like you're sharing rather than competing, which is lovely. It's it's good. Thank you.